Central Basin Water District. Number one issue.
No, I go back to the corruption issue when it comes to that. In Sacramento, we don't think about Central Basin as a water district where they consider it like a tremendous issue with corruption. They don't look at it as, oh, they're operating right or wrong. They just keep hearing the corruption issues, whether it be on the press, on the newspapers, whether it be the connection that they have with all the intertwined tentacles that go out into different consultants and what they get paid. But I think the image, we need to repair the image of the Central Basin and regain the trust of the public and making sure that they're back on track to providing clean and affordable water, as I've been saying.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Again, I'll agree there with the corruption. We need to clean that up. We need to also, importantly, we need to get back to smaller government. We got to have, the Central Basin was basically created for one purpose: to ensure that we had water here by purchasing it through Metropolitan Water District. And there was an issue back. They looked in the 50s that there's just too much. We're taking too much groundwater out. We need to bring imported water in. Central Basin was created to do that, to buy it through Metropolitan and sell it to the cities, to the other agencies that sell water. That's it. Getting into these recycle programs, this thing started in 1990. In 2001, they did an audit. Central Basin Municipal Water District, it's poorly planned, recycled water project, has burdened taxpayers. Okay, this was done April 2001 by the state of California. The projections by Central Basin, Phil claims this is such a successful project, was 8,500 acre feet by the fourth year. The latest paperwork shows we're only about 5,000 feet, and we're in 21st year here. 300 extra feet from last year to this year. Going at this rate, it'll be another 20 years before this gets done. And the problem also that lies with this, such great management, there's a $10 parcel tax on every acre piece of property, raising $3.2 million a year to pay for this recycle project that should have been paid for 4 years in the fourth year, fifth year, maybe the 10th year, but not 40 years after it starts. I mean, it's poorly managed. We have too much stuff going on over there that shouldn't be going on over there. So your rates are high, and if you're looking at the rates, you got Metropolitan that's raising them. We got folks that are sitting from the basin on Metropolitan who's raising those rates, that's passing them on to you, us, the ratepayers. And it's wrong just to line their pockets. We got to put a stop to that.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay. So basically, the number one problem is we need to get the basin back to doing what it's supposed to be doing, so we can get the rates down to where they should be. I mean, I would guess that your rates would probably be a third of what they are now if we were actually at the basin doing what we're supposed to be doing, instead of handing out, these lucrative contracts. Like the one that I just mentioned started at $600,000, potential to go to $5 million without even a vote. To go up to rebid. I'm sorry, not a vote, but to go up to rebid. It just keeps getting extended and adding more money on. If folks really knew what was going on, they'd be down there. Thank you.
Does anybody want to respond to anything anybody said?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Bring it, all right.
I'd like to hear some of the truth come out here. Nothing I've heard is truthful yet. And that's 12 years old. That's 12 years old. And the whole program has completely changed since then. It is self-supporting right now.
How many acre feet is that doing?
It only takes about 4,000 acre feet in order to be self-supporting, and we're doing 5.
Then why are we collecting $3.2 million?
Let Phil respond.
Why are we collecting $3.2 million?
The other thing is I keep hearing the word corruption, and this is outrageous. Let me tell you about a report that was done by the investigative reporter Sam Allen of the LA Times and Chris Wolf of the KTLA Channel 9. Let me just read you the last paragraph of this, and this is a very recent one. In this last paragraph, it's Chris Wolf talking. He says, again, we need to emphasize that there's no evidence of any wrongdoing at this time. This is 2 investigative reporters, and these 2 keep coming up with there's corruption. There is none. We need to get back to the truth and tell what's really going on. Let's talk about water, but they want to go off in left field and talk about this corruption stuff. There is none. We have 2 investigative reporters that have already proved that. So yeah, this is my response to some of this. I wish we could get back to the actual issues instead of running off wild on some of these accusations.
Mr. Mendoza.
Well, I'm going to respond to some of that. First of all, there is issues of corruption. There's actually about 8 or 9 articles right here that talk about corruption and how it's intertwined with the board members and the people that give them money. We talk about, and if it was one article, I'll say, you know what, it could be doubtful, good things happen. It's happened to me. But when you start talking about this many articles for the same issue, but you know, I don't know if you noticed how he keeps dancing around and doesn't really address the issues. He brought up the issue with Pacifica Services that started off with a contract, a really small contract many years ago, and all of a sudden it's ballooned to almost $5 million, but he doesn't want to talk about that. I talked about the issues about reserves, how last year was $36 million, now it's $26 million, what happened to the $10 million? He's dancing around that. Why don't we answer those two, and then answer a few more while you're at it. How about talk about the operating budget? Well, when he first started, it was $4.8 million. The operating budget now is $9.5 million. 96% increase. Talk about that. How about your administrative and PR budget? Wow, $1.4 million when he first started. Now it's $4.7 million. 236% increase. Talk about that. Let's not talk about corruption if you don't want to go there. But why don't we talk about the issue that we bring up and you dance around and play victim? Answer that.
10 seconds. Right, Mr. Gray.
Okay, 10 seconds.
No, you got 1 minute. 1 minute.
Okay, basically the stuff that doesn't exist, here's the most current Central Basin Municipal Water District operating budget with all my scribble notes on it. Recycled water acre a foot. You guys can look this up on the internet if you don't believe me. Maybe Phil needs to pay more attention at the next board meeting. 5,000 square feet. And then, 5,090, and then adopted 11-12 fiscal year, 5,390. Going back to the state document that's public record, 8,500 acre feet was projected to do it in the 4th year. Phil says it's paying for itself. Then Phil, I expect you at the next meeting to put an end to the $3.2 million tax that's paying for this thing, and that's what it's going for. Again, the budget right here, standby charge, $3.2 million. Actually, it was going higher, $3,274,000 with a $74,000 increase.
All right, Jerry, next question.
What, in your opinion, what is your opinion about legislation from Sacramento specifically targets the operation of the Central Water Basin District?
The question is, what is your opinion about legislation from Sacramento that specifically targets the operation of the Central Basin Water District? Such as, more specifically, Senator Lowenthal's bill. And let's have Jay Gray go first. Jay.
The Lowenthal bill is at the most recent one, the SB 3185, I think it is, something like that. Okay, okay, that's the recent one that dealt with replenishment, correct? Putting water in. Okay, I got to get all these straight here. Okay, basically, this bill basically deals again with the idea of a smaller government, and you know, again, Ronald Reagan mentioned, you know, facts are stubborn things. And what we have here is the fact of the Central Basin overextending its reach as far as government goes, and you know, they really have no deal in that. Water Replenishment District was created by the Central and Western Basins to do this. You know, Central Basin just recently put out to bid, well, I can't say it's put out to bid, but they basically are in the process of relieving their water master, the individual that makes sure water is distributed fairly. That's kind of interesting. That falls in line with them wanting to take over the groundwater and all this other political favoritism as far as giving out contracts to folks that are very well connected with them. And unfortunately, a lot of those names come up in the Bell scandals. And so the bill basically targets, it seems, just to make sure that, you know, what the people want done is done. You know, Mr. Hawkins mentioned in his interview that he wants to go through the courts to do that. You know, I remember about 3rd, 4th grade learning about government as well as Schoolhouse Rock. You know, laws, it's created in the legislature. The courts don't create the laws, and that's where this needs to go. They've spent too much money. Them suing the Water Replenishment District, everyone else suing everyone else. The only people that are paying for these lawsuits are the people. And that needs to stop. They need to get together as adults, and they need to settle this. I mean, you know, at one point, all three, the Central Basin, the Western Basin, and the Water Replenishment District, were in the same office sharing the same staff. Now you have 3 separate offices and 3 different staff. And you have all this stuff going on with all this extra money that's being spent, and it's just because these guys can't get along. At one point, it was basically professionals that were dealing with the water, and now we're having politics in it, and that's where the dirty water, dirty politics comes in.
Mr. Mendoza.
Yeah, as far as the Lowenthal bill, I think it's a reasonable bill.
Did you vote for it?
It's not having come up to our floor yet. It's on its way. But I believe I will be supporting it. Actually, I think it's good. I think every water district has their own purpose and their own duties, and something with some of the water boards are looked upon as trying to overreach and trying to put their hands in something that doesn't belong to them or shouldn't be involved with. So I'm hoping that this bill would clarify that and put people back on task and to doing what they're supposed to be doing as a water board, and hopefully create some sort of peace and end a lot of these frivolous lawsuits that are out there trying to, every time one water board sues another water board and they have to defend themselves. That's all ratepayer money. Ratepayers pay it twice, to fight it and to defend it. So those are all jacking up the prices on ratepayers, and that's what we don't want. We need to end that kind of practice. We need to end the wasteful spending, like special contracts or meals for spouses, or contracting frivolous authors who are in the internet. You pay them $200,000 to write good stories about Central Basin, but yet you can't find out who they are, but they ran off with $200,000 of taxpayer money. Those kind of practices are wasteful spending and hurts our ratepayers, and we need to stop that.
Mr. Hawkins.
Okay, here we go again. The article he is talking about, I have the retraction on the article right here. It's not true again. Here is the retraction from the LA Times.
Which article? There's 7, right?
Right here.
Which one? There's 8 of them.
The article, September 14th, the LA Extra. This is about what you just said about the $200,000 for under the contract that was never issued out.
So the other 7 are correct. This is
The 70 is correct.
No, the
but
other
we
7
didn't
are
do
correct.
the 200,000, and there was never any author on this.
Great, but the other 7 are correct.
And there's no author on any of this as well.
I was
Mr.
sure
Mr.
we
Hawkins,
So let me-
wait a minute.
We'll get back to it.
Let Phil talk.
Okay, I feel like I'm in a classroom. These guys don't know their history at all, so that's why I need to give them a little bit of history here. Central Basin was formed in 1952, and it was given all the powers to manage the district for water. In the early 60s, 59, 60, 61, they agreed to form WRD, the Water Replenishment District, and they each, West Basin and Central Basin, gave them the power to do water replenishment and only water replenishment. We sued to protect that. When we went to court, they said they had no storage rights. The court said this. We won that case. It is under appeal. About 2 months later, Cerritos, Downey, and Signal Hill sued WRD. And in that case, they said they had no rights except for replenishment. They could not be in recycling, could not be in education, could not be in conservation. That is in the courts right now. Senator Lowenthal's bill actually is trying to upset the balance of the courts because the cases have already been won and they are at the appellate court. This is outrageous to have the legislature come down and try to take powers away from the courts when they are the ones to determine what the interpretation of these powers were. And this is what's going on. It is a terrible bill, and it actually should never have gone as far as it has.
Mr. Gray.
Can I respond to that, though?
Let's let Mr. Gray talk to us.
Okay.
Thank you. First off, I want to say, again, well, I didn't say this before, but basically, a lie told often enough is still a lie. Specs, again, are stubborn things. In the Los Cerritos Community News, Mr. Randy Economy and Jay Bernstein wrote an article about Mr. Hawkins' claims. Basically, specifically, they refer to Shelby Grad, who is the city editor of the Los Angeles Times. And what it says is, but in the interview with Shelby Grad, city editor of Los Angeles Times, Hawkins needs to be held accountable for his vast statements. We want to clarify several comments made in his story. Despite what Mr. Hawkins said, the Times has never, I repeat, never, retracted any of its articles about the Central Basin Water District. And we never told officials that there was an article that was bogus. The Times stands by our stories. Moreover, there's never been any confusion over the authors of our stories. Okay. Again, we talk about, this has to go through the courts, it has to go through the legislature. Again, schooling who, take your history class, take your government civics class. We have checks and balances, the legislatures create the laws, the courts interpret the laws. If the legislatures don't like the way the courts rule, the legislatures can go back, create a law, draft it, pass it, it gets signed by the governor. It's all called checks and balances, and the idea is, it's not backroom deals trying to pay somebody off to lobbyists. I mean, it's too much money in lobbyist and consulting fees in this. You know, we need to get back to government. If we, you know, this agency stays where it needs to stay, we won't have all these arguments. We won't have all these complaints. The water district will be very quiet. It's been quiet for how many years now? I mean, you know, since the 50s up until recently, until, you know, the Times had the courage to bring this through. Thank you.
Let's do a let me let Mr. Mendoza, Assemblyman Mendoza, make a response, and then we'll let Phil finish that off.
Yeah, that'll be good. Quickly, I'm sure that if there's confusion on the far as this article and the retraction, maybe Randy could do an investigative report on that and maybe get to the bottom of the truth. That'll be kind of nice on that one particular article, but I think the other 7 articles are not in question. It was just that one, which is good. 1 out of 7, okay, maybe. So we'll let Randy get to the bottom of it. The other thing that what I'm puzzled is, I'm not too sure if the Central Basin has taken an position of opposition to this bill. In the 2 public meetings that they've had the last few months, they've had a watch position on this bill. But they did do a letter on May the 9th strongly opposing the bill, which is good, if that's their position.
10 seconds.
But before that, they still claimed they had a watch position. So in a public meeting, you're supposed to change that position, and they haven't. So I don't know how they came up to the strong opposition when it was watch before. When did that meeting occur? And if they did occur, did they do it in a public forum or was it behind the scenes?
Mr. Hawkins, 30 seconds.
Yes, this is what, well, the way the bill is presented up there is you look at the original bill and then you wait to see if there's going to be any amendments to that bill. We were waiting to see if there was going to be any amendments to see if we would take a stronger position than what we have. And then when we found out what the bill was going to start passing through, then we took our position. We were against the bill.
In a public meeting?
Yes, in Sacramento. On the Senate side, yes.
No, but the public meeting, did the board officially take a position against it in a public meeting here in the district?
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's not on record, but we'll get to the bottom of that.
A question I